ask, in the interest of time, that you hold your applause for your candidates until after the candidate's closing statement at the end so that we can move quickly on to the next question. The first question, again, I'm sorry, to Dan Naylor, and that is, why are you the most qualified candidate for the 114th District?
One of the things I think that separates the two of us is that I have owned and operated a business, and having been a dairy farmer, I tell you that money comes tough, so that when you spend it carefully. And I think as your next state representative, I will go to Harrisburg and spend your money very carefully. The other thing is that I've helped to start a business, and as we started that business and eventually sold it, and then watched as the new management team basically put it into bankruptcy. And it was very frustrating, and so I think that I've brought those skills with me. And then also, having been on the school board, I've negotiated 4 teacher contracts over the 17 years. And when you negotiate a contract, you look for a fair contract. That's when I have to give a little more than I want to give, but they give a little less than they want to get. That's a fair contract. And that's what I think I take to Harrisburg, is a skill to be able to bring people together to get things done.
Sid, the same question to you.
Andrea, as you mentioned, in 25 years of working in television and radio in northeastern Pennsylvania, I've traveled all over the district, the 114th District, covering sporting events. But each and every time out, I got a chance to meet with the people of the district, talk to them about their kids, talk to them about their homes, about what concerns them, what they're thinking about. So I really got a chance over the past 25 years to learn what makes the people of this district tick and what they're concerned about. Then, over the past 4 years, with the opportunity to work with the Senate Communications Office, day in and day out, I was in on public hearings before Senate committees where our legislative process was taking place. I was able to learn the issues. I was able to see how our government works. And that includes the good and the bad. So combining these two, my knowledge of the issues and the workings of our state government with the people of the district, make me extremely qualified to be representative of the 114th District.
Dan, anything you'd like to add at this point?
No.
Then we'll move on to our substance questions. The first question pertains to election reform. According to Pennsylvania election law, independent and minor party candidates cannot participate in the primary election and are required to collect more signatures on nominating papers than major party candidates. Would you support legislation that would grant greater ballot access for these candidates to level the playing field? And the first response to Sid.
Yes, I would support legislation and support any action that would allow. As a matter of fact, I had the chance to talk with some people who were registered independent for the primary, and their main concern was the fact that they weren't able to vote in the primary. I think under our democracy, under our government, everybody should have the right to vote as they please in each and every election. It's our right as Americans, it's our right as Pennsylvanians, and I would support legislation that would allow that, yes.
Dan.
I also would support legislation to allow for this. I think it's very important that those that have registered independent have that opportunity to vote. It's important to them. They've taken the step to register, and so I think therefore we need to allow them to vote in the primary and in the general election, whichever way they feel is right for the people of the 114th District.
Sid, anything to add?
That's good.
The next question also pertains to election reform, obviously a topic that's near and dear to the hearts of League of Women Voters members. Would you support legislation to allow no-fault absentee voting and to ease the deadlines for returning absentee ballots? And the first response to Dan.
Once again, I think that yes, we need to allow for this because we need to make sure that every vote is counted and every voice is heard. And so I definitely would support.
Sid?
And same here, as Dan mentions, It's everyone needs to be heard, everyone has a right to be heard, and every effort should be made that every vote is counted, that every person has the opportunity to have that vote counted. So, yes, I would agree with that.
Dan, anything to add? The next question is our speed round on legislative reform. So on this round, I'm going to ask you to answer the question with a simple yes or no. The next question will allow you to expand on your answers, but for this round, it's simply yes or no. And Sid, you'll answer the first question first. What is your opinion of the legislative reforms recommended by the bonus gate grand jury? Specifically, do you support or oppose reducing the size of the legislature? And I guess I should say support or oppose, not yes or no.
Now, I answer yes or no, and I'll have a chance to expound later.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Dan,
Yes.
imposing term limits.
Yes.
Yes.
Abolishing so-called walking around money or WAMs.
Yes.
Yes.
And eliminating per diems, requiring members to prove actual expenses and submit receipts.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Okay. The next question on legislative reform, discuss your responses to the questions in the speed round and or offer other recommendations for legislative reform. Dan, the question to you.
First of all, with the regard to per diems, I have said right from the start that I would not take a per diem, actual expenses, but I would post it on the internet. I feel it's important that you need to see exactly what I've spent. You know, I wouldn't spend $25 for a breakfast out of my pocket. Why would I spend that much out of the public's money? Let's see, the other ones, as far as
Reducing the size
reducing
of
the size of the state legislature, we spend $300 million on our state legislature, and the state of Illinois spends about $150 million. And the people in Illinois say they spend too much money. We need to reduce the size and the cost of the state legislature.
Term limits?
Term limits, I support two types of term limits. I think that we should, 10 to 12 years is the maximum number of years that any individual should serve, but then every 2 years that the voters should have that right to vote us out.
And the last question was abolishing WAMs.
The WAMs are used for political purposes, and it's your money, it's your tax dollars, and we need to eliminate those so that there's full accountability.
Sid, the same question to you. Discuss your responses and or offer other recommendations for legislative reform.
First of all, concerning the size of legislature, I agree, as I said, with reducing the size of legislature, but particularly in a district the size of the 114th, if we're going to reduce the number of elected officials that we have in Pennsylvania, we have to make sure that the people are still adequately represented. Especially, as I said, with the 114th district, it's a very large district. And if we are going to eliminate, for example, the representative from this district, can the representative from a neighboring district be able to focus and give as much time and as much attention to his added constituents? So I'm for reducing the size of legislature, but if we are going to do it, we must be very careful in how we go about it. As for per diems, I am definitely for eliminating per diems. I've never worked at a job where I was just handed an amount of money and said, here's your money for the day, and if you don't spend it, you can keep it. I was always told, turn in your receipts, and you will be reimbursed for whatever you spent. So I do agree with that, and I do agree that there should be an opportunity for constituents, for the public, to be able to see how this money was spent. As for term limits, I do agree with the term limits, and also, as my opponent states, there are two parts to this. Term limits for elected officials, but I also think that it's very important that there are term limits for leaders, because I feel that that's where a good portion of the abuse comes in our legislature, when our leaders are in position for a long period of time and they start to abuse that power. And I also believe that we should have term limits for leaders and walking around money. Again, it's money that's the taxpayers' money, and it's not spent according to how the taxpayers wish. And I also think the WAMs should be eliminated.